Hello and welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. And Phil, the positivity is going to continue because the Dons made it 5 from 5 in league business to continue their fine start under Jimmy Thelin. But before we get into the action, Phil will say a quick thank yous. First of all, to both Chubbs and Jay Moyer on Twitter for letting us use their respective photos for the thumbnails, whether you're watching this video on YouTube or listening to us on audio as well. And also a big thank you to Bold Bro. Bold Bro is the #1 skincare brand for bold men like myself looking for a healthy and protected skin without the shine. With a 30-day money-back guarantee, why not try their daily matte moisturizer with SPF included? You can get up to 30 or 50. I currently use the 30 SPF, and I have to say, I don't need to worry about sun cream, which has been fantastic. Bold Bro Daily, go bold or go home. You can shop now at boldbro.com. That's BLDBRO.com. And why not receive 10% off with your first order using the code GLEN10? How about that, Phil?
Well, it's a good job that you did that intro because I think I've maybe got a little bit too much on top for that. But I will say your head's not half looking as shiny as it used to.
Well, that's good to hear. But one thing that certainly is shining, Phil, just now is Jimmy Thellin's Dons, and more specifically, Pape Habib Gueye. What a performance from the Senegalese this weekend.
Yeah, who would have thought that Gay was going to be our star man this season? Yeah, fair play to him and all the staff involved for turning it around. 2 goals clear, his top goal scorer, and yeah, what a performance he put in overall on Saturday. I thought.
Yeah, there's a few shining lights this weekend. We'll come into that throughout the podcast. Coming up on the episode as well, we'll look at the selection headache potentially facing Jimmy ahead of the weekend's Cup quarter-final against the Spartans. And later on in the episode, we'll have the opposition insight from Cameron Hobbs as well, giving us the lowdown on Spartans themselves as well. But Phil, before the game, I think we need to talk about the displays in both the Red Shed and the Richard Donald stand. We saw fireworks, we saw safe pyrotechnics as well. God, the atmosphere really is ramping up. Just imagine what it's going to be like if this run continues till Christmas.
Yeah, honestly, as a wrestling fan, it was very WWE-esque for me. No, it was great. It was brilliant to see. I think we can all admit and see the difference that Mez has made since going into his role with the club and sort of leaps and bounds. The sort of fan experiences came on. So yeah, fair play to everybody involved in getting that going and obviously making sure it ran as smoothly as it could have. And like I say, it was a great spectacle, and I think it really did. Our atmosphere has been great this season. I think that really helped amp it up and right from the get-go. So yeah, it was brilliant to see.
Yeah, I think it's really improved obviously the results on the pitch are improving the match day experience, but getting the fans involved with the flags and the pyro and the fireworks as well. It felt like a proper sporting event, very Americanized with the fireworks as well. It reminded me of the NFL. Every time a team scores a touchdown, when you see fireworks getting launched off, I did like there was a reply to the Fans Project saying that could we get fireworks on the main stand roof so every time we score a goal we launch some fireworks, which would be pretty interesting to see. NFL on my mind because Cameron Hobbs, who joins me later on in the show to speak about Spartans, is the host of an NFL podcast, so more on that later on as well. The good thing about the weekend though as well, Phil, we're once again seeing another positive start to the game. I thought that first 30 minutes was some of the best football I've seen us take. Slightly frustrating we didn't find the goal in the opening 30 minutes, but we really cause teams problem when we're in full stride.
Yeah, like you said, I think that was one of the best starts that we've had so far this season. And it was, again, it's something we'll probably come on to speak about later as the sort of difference in the first and second half. But yeah, just came out the traps absolutely flying. Everybody looked right up for it. And yeah, like the changes that were made to that starting 11, I think slotted in seamlessly. It didn't look like, for example, Palaversa, a player that hasn't really played much football, seemed to just fit in no problem at all.
Yeah, no Graham Shinney in the matchday squad. No word on his absence as yet. I've certainly not seen anything.
Yeah, there was some rumblings that was maybe illness I heard from people around me, but you can't really take that as gospel, I suppose. But yeah, like you say, it was a bit of a strange one that nothing came out pre-match.
But I think the biggest compliment you've got to give to Ante Palaversa is the fact that his performance made me not even think about Graham Shinney at the weekend. I didn't, it wasn't until I was kind of commenting on social media after the game about how impressive he was when someone actually replied to that effect that, Graham Shinney who, you know, you kind of thought, oh yeah, he wasn't in the squad. You totally forgot about kind of when you were heading to Pittodrie about that, oh no, where's Graham? Like if we need him. And I think that's probably the biggest compliment you can play him for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, neither of us are going to sit here and say that Graham's lost his spot in the team, or that where we need to be worried that he might be out long term because he is an influential player. But
we might debate it later on, though.
we might. But yeah, I thought he just absolutely strolled it, and I think it is a testament to his quality as a player. I was speaking to it with a few of the guys on the bus back down the road, and we were saying it was very much he's that type of midfielder where he's had a good game where you don't even notice what he's doing, and it was one of those games where he was so influential, but he just went about his business so efficiently and so quietly that you almost just went, Christ, he's actually on the pitch. Barely broke a sweat. Everything was pinpoint. And yeah, like you say, I think he was, for me, one of the best players on the park.
I guess kind of a Kenny McLean. Imagine missing him. Player just exactly does what you just said there. Went about his business quietly, but when needed, produced moments of quality.
Yeah, absolutely. And on both ends of the pitch as well. Defensively, I thought he was great breaking down. Because like we'd spoken about on the last episode, Motherwell's midfield's one of their strongest areas. And keeping the likes of Glen and Miller quiet during that first sort of hour was real testament to him.
Yeah, and I thought he added that little bit of needle into midfield because, as you say, they're breaking up the play when needed and alongside Nielsen as well. You've got two midfield enforcers, but I actually thought both of them complemented each other superbly as well. When one went forward, the other one dropped deep and vice versa.
Yeah, for me it was, like I said earlier, we'll come on to speak about it, but as much as it was a great all-round performance, I think it really was a game of two halves for me. And I think that first half between Palaversa and Nielsen in the back line as a whole, we really did a good job of nullifying Motherwell.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think what did we give them in the first half? I think it was 2 shots they had all first half. Just a real good job at sort of locking down those creative players like Glenn and Miller, like I've said earlier. Even Andy Halliday not really getting on the ball much to even just be a bit of a prick really and line people up was just shutting them down. It was great to see in the first half.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what was also great to see was the attacking intent that was shown. Unfortunately, we're not really quite getting the reward. Jamie McGrath flashing a shot wide. Topi Keskinen was getting into good areas. Now, last time out, we did an episode when we were recording during England against Finland. So we were a bit oblivious until after recording the criticism that Roy Keane delivered towards Topi about maybe being a little bit greedy and keeping on possession for too long in certain occasions. I kind of felt a couple of times, and I'm not judging him because it's only been a few games, but I could almost see where that kind of level of criticism was coming from Roy Keane, because there was a couple of occasions where I thought, take the shot or play whoever it was, play them in, and he just held on for it, and the kind of attack stopped or we lost possession. Did you feel the same? Or
yeah, in a way, and like you say, I don't really blame him. I think Motherwell really sort of signposted him as the danger man, and they did tend to get on him quite quickly. So, either his sort of the space that he was running into was shut down quickly, or when he got on the ball, there was immediately 2 or 3 bodies around him. So I think it was partly a frustration of just wanting to be able to do something and provide.
Yeah.
And I think as well, the pressure of being that big signing as well, you kind of have that expectation where you feel like you have to every week be providing a goal or an assist or doing something that's going to get somebody out their seat. And I think, that really did feed into him a little bit. And like you say, it took away those sort of chances to play somebody in or just get a quick shot off, but not really blaming him too much for it. Nisbet was quiet as well, so he wasn't alone and maybe not producing exactly what people would expect of him. But no, I think it was right to bring him off when we did. But yeah, like you say, I think he did sort of let that frustration feed into his game.
I don't think, as I said, it's not a criticism that I'm aiming at him, because I think you've just made a good point about how Motherwell were kind of nullifying that threat that Keskinen provides. To the same effect, what Kilmarnock were doing, they were doubling up on him at every opportunity. So normally where he might have the opportunity to beat the man and go into space, there was a second man there. And what will benefit us eventually is when teams are doubling him up, there will be an overlap, and we just have to get to that stage where the ball's fed through or he lays it off for someone to play the man in space. So as I said, it's not a criticism. It was just at the time when the chances were coming and we weren't maybe getting the goal. It's just a nervousness of a football fan, as when you're dominating a game and you're not taking those chances, you're like, we're going to get caught with a sucker punch.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, conversely as well, I think Nicky Devlin's work rate was brilliant again. Up and down the line, he created quite a lot, but as well, the main man we've spoken about at the top of the episode, Pape, it gave him so much space, for the long diagonal, which Palaversa was so good at finding, sort of getting the ball shifted over quickly to the left wing. He had acres of room, whether he was floating in the 10 or whether he went out left to sort of double up with McGrath. So I don't think doubling, like you say, I don't think doubling Keskinen is going to be something that's going to be too much of a headache. As that sort of final product develops a little bit within him, he'll be able to create those chances for everybody else around him.
Yeah, and I think what also benefits this team massively is our in-game changing of formation, which again continued to cause Motherwell problems throughout that first half. And then, as you say, being a tale of two halves caused Motherwell problems when we made the changes in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one thing we didn't really have last season. Like we spoke about a lot, was it was plan A or bust. And the fact we're able to sort of be able to quickly sort of change things up. It's testament to Jimmy, but it's also testament to the players as well. It's sort of how good their sort of game IQ and their game management is to be able to, maybe even without instruction of the coach, sort of have that belief in them to be able to just think on the fly and make those changes that suit that in-game scenario.
Yeah, and you've spoken about Nicky Devlin and his performances and continued impressive performances, and I know Stevie Christie wants me to lead the charge for Nicky Devlin in the Scotland squad. I don't know if Steve Clark watches these videos or listens to the podcast and see if we see that. But one other player, I guess, that might be on the peripheral of Scotland call-ups, but certainly a player that's gone under the radar, Jack McKenzie making his 100th appearance for the Dons this weekend. I don't know what surprised me more, the fact that it was Jack's 100th appearance or the fact that Esther Sokler wrapped up 50 appearances for the Dons. But it was Jack McKenzie's hoofball up the pitch. It was maybe kind of the first hoofball we've seen under Jimmy Thelin that led to that opening goal at the weekend.
No, it was a no-look reverse up the line. You knew exactly where it was going, Glen. Come on, credit him with that assist. But no, again, Jack McKenzie just is turned it into just a really, really good left back for us. He reads the game so well. I think he's actually gotten a bit quicker over the years as well. There's some of the times where he had, especially when Tavares came on and was sort of switching wings in the second half. I was impressed he was still able to keep up with him during that. But yeah, just a really, really competent left back. Really does all the fundamentals right that you want in a left back. I know everyone sort of speaks about it, sort of very Constein-esque in the way that he goes about his business. Just a very good, sensible, fundamental footballer. And I think you kind of need that at times. But yeah, 100 appearances and they're all very well deserved. And like we were saying before we came on, a potential, at left back for Scotland. I'm not too sure whether he's at that level yet. It's a stiff competition. But
him or Andy Robertson.
It's tough, But I mean, look at Greg Taylor. He's had seasons where he's not been on the biggest form, and he gets a call up. Likewise with Ralston at right back. So Devlin and McKenzie. Maybe we could see the Aberdeen connection there.
Yeah, and maybe they have to move away from Aberdeen to get a Scotland call-up as well. On Jack McKenzie, though, do you think he gets the praise he deserves? Or do you think he still gets a tough time because he's a local lad? Similar to, you obviously mentioned Constantine. There's other players, I'm thinking, Dean Campbell got a lot of criticism. You go far back as Darren Mackey, but I know that's maybe a contentious one. But do you think being a local lad playing for Aberdeen, there's a lot more focus on you as a player?
I think there is. I think it's a fine line, and there's pockets of each, really. There's that sort of pocket, especially on Twitter, a magnitude of people who will sing Jack McKenzie's praises at every opportunity they get. I'm occasionally in that pocket, I must admit. But at the same time, there is, he's Jack McKenzie and not Juan whoever. So, immediately you're off to a dreadful start of just being a local lad. You're not seen as that sort of flips and frills of the foreign market that we all want to be foreign in. So I think he does get a little bit of stick. But again, it's sort of that same thing as Palaversa, where McKenzie's had a good game when you don't really realise till afterwards everything that he's done. And you kind of go, oh, he was traipsing back in the 90th minute and made a last-ditch tackle, or, he was driving up and down the line the whole game, creating, getting the ball into the box. And I think that's the type of player that he is. Like I say, very fundamental, very no-nonsense. And I think you just need that at times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Scottish Cafu, at least for us anyway. But you're right. He does the
Scottish Cafu on the other side, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, or we could still just call him the Statue of Liberty, judging by Twitter today. If you haven't seen that trend going around WhatsApp and social media, how Jack McKenzie looks exactly like the Statue of Liberty. Honestly, search it and you will be able to unsee it. There's some absolutely pointless content for you. Like you say, keep it real on this podcast as well. And keeping it real is Pape Habib Gueye, Phil. I mean, that's definitely the first contender for goal of the season.
Yeah, I don't know where it's came from. Last season, every time we saw him, it looked like he was just running through Trico. And obviously, being in the south stand, I sort of thought, oh, he's taking that touch and the defender's probably just going to body him out the way. And he just turned into like prime Usain Bolt, just opened up the legs. And yeah, what a finish. Again, I don't know what's gotten in this season. If he was in that sort of position last year, you would have been saying, oh, that's either straight at the keeper or it's over the bar. Or it
was straight out probably with a touch.
Yeah, exactly. But, it was funny. It was my dad that had said to me about Gareth Bale's goal against Barcelona. And I thought, well, maybe we're getting a stretch too far here. But,
he's not wrong.
I do see the parallels.
How confident were you when he got to the box that he was going to find the back of the net?
Surprisingly enough, somewhat. And I think that is genuinely just because of the form that he's been on at the moment. And out of the players on the pitch at that point, again, it feels so Orwellian to say it. He's the man you wanted in that position, and that feels so weird. But also, I'm entirely here for it.
I'm so glad for him on a personal level after the tough time he obviously kind of publicly came out with during his spell at Aberdeen last season, and struggling to settle within the city and life under Barry Robson at Aberdeen. Obviously, there was the whole public fallout when Ryan Duncan wore his t-shirt in Revolution. I kind of think it would be quite ironic if Pat was kicking about Revolution or Soul with a Ryan Duncan t-shirt on now that he's not at the club. But just shows kind of like what we've maybe benefited with Vinny and other players in the past. Those loan spells, going out to clubs, getting regular minutes, getting goal involvement. He's come back and is a player reborn, or as I heard Carol Innes, of course, who's been on the show before on Sports Sound, saying at the weekend, maybe he just sent his twin brother back from Norway instead.
Yeah, and anything's possible. But yeah, between Vinny, Dante, Gay, it's it shows the power of regular minutes and the potential of a loan. So yeah, what a man! Loved seeing his dance moves again and again. He just seemed to glide across the pitch. I don't know what it is about him. He was just, his overall game was really, really tidy. Even outside of his 2 goals, sort of the ability to take on his man, being a really good constant out ball, bringing the midfield in attack sort of together as well. Some of his sort of more creative playmaking. Really, really impressed with him. And hopefully long may it continue. Like we say, the selection headaches Jimmy's going to have when this team's all back to full fitness is going to be, not one that I would enjoy having as a manager, but one that I'm thoroughly enjoying looking from the outside in.
100%. And I'm just so glad for him, and as most players in that position are confidence players. And I think we saw that level of confidence by the fact he didn't go where most of the Motherwell players, including the goalkeeper, was expecting to go across the goalkeeper into the far corner and cut it back and pinged it in off the post as well, which I didn't realise it had gone in off the post until watching back on Sports Scene as well. But his turn of pace is something as well that's kind of caught me by surprise this season. And again, I don't know if that's something he's been working on in the off season, because it definitely didn't seem, to me anyway, that he had that much pace about him last year as well. And that's really kind of causing teams, and it caused Motherwell a lot of problems as well. And it felt at the time, it was just reward for the way we'd been playing in those early exchanges. But the feeling for myself at half time was almost frustration that we were only going in 1-0 up, and because it should have been more.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like you say, I think it was a game of two halves. The first half entirely dominant. Majority of our chances made first half, majority of the ball the first half. Just seemed to really be cruising without really having to come out of second year that much.
Yeah.
It's like you say, I think not a sort of frustration where I would have been shouting and throwing things about, like, maybe a couple of the teams down my neck of the woods with how they're performing. But just one of those ones where, like you say, I think that killer instinct is maybe something we're just needing a little bit more, just to really try and make the games a little bit less nervy for the last 2 minutes, please, Aberdeen. I don't know if my heart can take much more of this.
In terms of the second half as well, Motherwell seemed to get a little bit more of a foothold in the game. They made some changes, but I never really felt, aside from I think it was the Tony Watt header straight at Dimitar Mitov, that they were causing huge amounts of problems. I think Jay Tavares also flashed a shot that certainly from the red shed angle that I had was comfortably going over. I don't know if it was maybe a bit more nervy from the main stand or south stand sides, side-on views. But they seem to be growing into the game. And again, we spoke about the in-game management and change in tactics. What I'm enjoying about Jimmy Thelin is how reactive he is to these situations. I saw one of his assistants, and I feel like it was after the Jay Tavares shot, running down the touchline, signalling to Shaden Morris and somebody else to come back up. It was like, right, we need to make that change now because they're getting too much momentum. Whereas what we've seen in previous seasons and previous management, it was, the goal's coming. The goal scored. Right, now we'll change it. We're reacting before the worst case scenario happens just now.
Yeah, no, I think the second half was, it was kind of to be expected. Obviously, Motherwell chasing the game, going predominantly long. They were going to probably be creating more than we were, out of just sheer desperation to do it. I think, as much as I thought the changes that were made for the most part were correct and were very much needed, I think, as you say, Motherwell grew into the game. I think when Palaversa came off, we kind of lost that midfield control a little bit, and it took, maybe 10 minutes for Clarkson to grow into the game a little bit. I think we kind of lost that little bit of bite in the middle that we had. And I think that allowed Motherwell to kind of, like I said earlier, Lennon Miller, who is by far probably one of the best young talents in Scotland and by far Motherwell's best player. He was able to get on the ball a lot more and kind of drag Motherwell forward and, like you say, kind of get the ball in the box to Tony Watt and Moses Abayi when he came on. I think it was that sort of change that really just made us lose our rhythm a little bit in the midfield, which was unfortunate. But no, like I say, I think the change of Morris and Vinny was very much needed, just kind of keep the energy levels high for the press. But and like I say, it was nice to see that before everything had gone to pot, as we had in previous years.
And Shaden Morris once again coming off the bench to have a goal involvement, obviously not a direct assist this time, but both himself and Vinny providing really great options for us coming off the bench in driving up tired defenders, obviously being tired out by Topi's directness, Pape's directness as well. So for as much as Motherwell wanted to go route one, we were going direct, and that was continuing to cause problems as well.
Yeah, and I think it's something obviously was spoken about a lot last season. One of our big downfalls was getting in the lead and then just seeming to just park the bus for no apparent reason. The cliche of attack is the best defence, I think, was very much true on Saturday. The fact we kind of kept the foot on the gas a little bit, albeit maybe not as much as the first half, but we still kept that press high and kept creating chances where we could. I think for me, Morris again just showing his quality as a ball carrier. And potentially, like we said before about him and Vinny, that role of being that impact sub against tired legs. It was really good to see him notching up another sort of involvement, and the sort of unified celebrations of Nicky Devlin almost taking out Pape's spindly legs from underneath him was lovely to see as well.
But I like how you speak about unified celebrations as well, because when you watch back the goal that Pape scores, his first one as well, the varying celebrations from the players and the reactions, and Kevin Nisbet's in particular, is great to watch. Spoken there about the impact that both Vinny and Shaden have made coming off the bench. Leighton Clarkson comes on to get some much needed minutes after his injury. Kind of affected that midfield tempo. Of course, a totally different player to Ante Palaversa. The changes, I guess, has kind of sparked some debate and topic for Aberdeen fans, because, of course, we've got to find something to speak about in a negative tone. And I don't know if this is more a negative or a concern. Put it where you want. But at Craig LG8 asks, obviously delighted with the start to the season. However, still a bit concerned we're not killing teams off earlier, which we've spoken about. Does anyone else feel that? How much do you feel, though, that killing off the teams is maybe being affected by the changes that are being made? Because I've seen some debate over the weekend that we're maybe a bit weaker when we're making those changes.
Yeah, I think there's still an element of that. I'm overall very happy we're eking out wins, no matter how they come. Again, that was the downfall last season, was that we couldn't just eke out these sort of sticky games. So, as an overall positive headline here, I'm not being negative, so please don't cry. That, overall positive. But yeah, like I say, I think we're just occasionally, like I say, lacking that killer instinct. I think off the bench, Sockler's been struggling in front of goal. Ambrose isn't the finished product yet. Morris isn't really known for his goals. And again, Vinny's not really had much opportunity to provide much in terms of goals either. So I think we are sort of lacking in that department in terms of really sort of getting at the throat in the last sort of few minutes. But like I say, overall, as much as my heart would like us to not take it down to the last minute, as we did on Saturday, I think the fact that we are still, for the most part, the dominant team in the game, I think isn't giving me too much cause for concern, because I think it will come. I think it will come in time. Obviously, just hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and thankfully for us, of course, that second goal did come. Shaden Morris with brilliant work down the right-hand side, cut back for Nicky Devlin, who was denied by a superb save from the Motherwell goalkeeper, but thankfully Pape was on hand to head home the second goal. Give us that little bit of cushion before, as you mentioned, Moses Abey pulled one back late on for Motherwell, continuing his own personal streak of scoring late goals this season. Then Dimitar Mitov, who is probably fighting right now with Nielsen for signing of the season, potentially for player of the year as well. I know you and Grant, of course, one of the members of the channel here on YouTube, has already put his hat in the ring for Nielsen being player of the year. But Dimitar Mitov came up clutch in that game against Ross County with a penalty save, came up clutch as well in Perth on the opening day when St Johnstone were getting back into the game. I'm pretty sure it was at 2-1 as well. He made that stunning save down there. And again this weekend, maybe his own doing a little bit from the corner, coming for a ball that was maybe not quite on, but more than made up from it with a claw to deny Motherwell what looked set to be an equaliser and give Aberdeen the full 3 points, as Sportscene said, saving Aberdeen 2 points.
Yeah, Don's number one. I love his pearly whites. For me, Mittov's been signing of the season, in my opinion. I think just the general almost lack of anxiety I have over our back line now, just by the fact that he's in the sticks, is night and day to last year. And like you say, potentially his own fault he had to pull out that, claw in the dying embers. But it still takes a keeper of good quality to be able to do it. And yet again, just a very overall good game from him. Like I say, that header from Tony Watt that was straight at him. Probably should expect him to save it, but
Yeah.
he was on hand to do it. Commanded his box well again. Once again, also enjoyed the fact he was going absolutely tonto at full time, I think, to Nicky Devlin. So, no points for guessing who Meathoff thought was at fault for Moses' goal, because he was just going off his rocker at him. I'm not sure if you saw it from the red shed, but when they were doing the lap on in front of the south, he was just losing it at him. So yeah, just a real leader, just a real calming force at the back, and like I say, just the fact that we've got this quality keeper for what was it, 180,000 roughly, is unbelievable business.
Absolute steal. And to top things off at the weekend as well, not just the fact that the Dons remain joint top of the table, is that it's another manager we've managed to successfully rattle this weekend. Stuart Kettlewell crying at full time, coming out and saying that Aberdeen were rattled by us scoring and the time wasting at getting the balls back after we scored. There should have been more time added, crying because the referee did not allow the final 15 seconds to be played out. 15 seconds is 15 seconds, he said. He'd have loved to see what Motherwell could have done in that time. They just weren't given the opportunity. Oh, this is going to be enjoyable the longer this goes on, Phil.
Well, it's almost like Motherwell had 96 minutes to do something and they didn't really do much. So, if I was Stuart Kettlewell, I would probably spend more time trying to actually play football than kick lumps out of people. But that's just me. You might have a haircut like Count Dracula, but I don't know why he was doing addition like the Count from Sesame Street on the sideline, but each to their own.
Yeah, and it's not like Liam Kelly was time wasting from the first minute last time Motherwell came up here. So it's nice to taste your own medicine, Stuart. And we'll move swiftly on as it's cup fever this weekend as the Dons have the opportunity to set their sights on Hampden. Spartans stay in our way. The first meeting between the two sides, Phil. And the weekend, I guess, poses the first selection headache for the manager this weekend, of course, based on the performance of Ante Palaversa making his first start. Ross Doohan, we've seen as well, being used for the League Cup. And I'm just trying to bring up my notes because Ian Taylor made a point as well, I'm guessing kind of ahead of this game. He asks, with Palaversa, the injuries he's had and Shinnie getting on a bit, could we see a bit of rotation there to get the best out of both of them? Palaversa on Saturday made a huge case to get a starting spot. We spoke about Shinnie's not going to lose his place going forward in the long run, but I wouldn't be opposed if it is an injury that kept Graham Shinnie out the squad, protect him ahead of the upcoming game against Dundee in the league, and continue Ante Palaversa in that midfield at the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got no doubt. Jimmy's been very respectful to his opponents in the League Cup group stages. He's always played, a pretty strong squad, if not our strongest squad, no matter who the opposition is. And I think he'll probably stick with that as well. It's very much if it's not broken, you don't need to change it. But like you say, I think depending on why Shinnie was out of the squad on Saturday, would probably be sensible just to give him that extra game, whether it's an injury, whether it's illness, whether it's personal reasons, whatever it might be. An extra week off, and the fact that that Palaversa can slot in there quite comfortably, and also it'd be another good game to give him, minutes in his legs where he's going to get on the ball, he's going to be able to be the creative force. It'll be good for him. Potentially see Morris maybe getting back in the team. Maybe give McGrath a rest again, or maybe Keskinen, whoever he thinks deserves it more. But yeah, I think. Personally, I don't think there's going to be too much change, in all honesty. I think it's his first chance to get to Hampden. Spartans have caused an upset already in the Cup by knocking out County. So I think Jimmy will treat it with as much respect as possible.
Yeah, of course, that game against Ross County was played on the plastic pitch down at Ainsley Park. We are on our own home surface. I agree. I don't think there will be too many changes. I think we could see potentially up to 3. I do wonder if we're going to view Ross Doohan as the cup goalkeeper, kind of like the big teams in England do. You play cup goalkeeper right up until you get to Wembley. So it could be Ross has another opportunity in between the sticks this weekend, and Dimmy comes in if we go on to make it back to Hampden. Interesting, you spoke about, does Vinny get the start in place of Jamie McGrath? Could Leighton Clarkson get a start? He's another player that will be looking for minutes in Spartans, again, with the greatest respect. Provides a perfect opportunity for someone like him to gain minutes. But again, who do you drop? Do you drop Jamie McGrath? Do you really go and drop Pape after he scored a brace at the weekend? I'm interested to see what we do up front. Obviously, Kevin Nisbet came in for his first start at the weekend against Motherwell. Do we chop and change the striker again?
Yeah, it's very possible. Like I say, I mean, I personally was slightly underwhelmed with Kevin's performance on Saturday. I think he really struggled to kind of impact the game in the way that we know he can. There's a couple of good moments where he was able to hold the ball up, but again, I just think he really struggled to get on the ball, and especially in the opponent's box. But
I think for me, what he did was more off the ball in terms of, I thought he was better than the previous game against Ross County. He didn't come as deep as much, but he was making the runs off the ball, and he was doing forward runs, which was taking defenders away and then leaving space at the back post for somebody, whether it be Jack McKenzie or the opposite winger, to come in and have space to then knock it back to Kevin Nisbet. So I thought, I can understand the frustrating point of view, which I'm sure as people maybe have towards Tope, like we've already discussed, but I don't think it was a terrible performance. But as we've spoken, strikers are always going to be judged on goal scoring, aren't they?
yeah, no, exactly. And like I said, frustration is maybe not the best word for it. I think it's more in the run up to October, which we've already said is going to be a tougher month. Maybe, BBC Radio will think it's a test. Who knows what they think a test is going to be at this point. But it would be nice to have seen him, maybe picking up still plenty of time, obviously, but I really want to see him pick up more goals going into that, to kind of have that vein of form where if we are up against it, against a Celtic or Rangers, that if he gets one opportunity in the box, we know he's going to smash it in. So that's maybe where my frustration comes from. But I'd also be interested to hear your views as well going into the Spartans game of whether Duke maybe gets involved in the matchday squad. I'm not saying starting, but do you think there's maybe a place for him on the bench?
Yeah, I think so. Again, you want to provide the opposition with the utmost respect, but again, it's certainly an opportunity to put him at least on the bench and potentially get 5 minutes off the bench, and see what reaction he gets from the crowd, but also see what reaction we get from him on a playing level as well. I just think that we won't make too many changes. It's not going to be a wholesale sweeping changes. It'll be 2 or 3 tactical changes to protect players. Obviously, Jamie McGrath with a head injury has played a lot of minutes already for the club this season, and is probably keeping players hungry. I bet that's a buzzword used in Jimmy Thellin's pre-match press conference, and keep wanting to keep them on their toes in training, fighting for those starting spots, and especially for, as you say, the upcoming tests that this squad is sure to face. And I'm sure we'll face one this weekend in Spartans. And to be honest, I think it's quite disrespectful to the rest of the league when it says we've not been tested, given we've nearly played half of the league. And I think it's really disrespectful to both Ross County and Motherwell, who I thought both played extremely well against us and did provide us tests in certain situations. But hey, the West Coast media need to be annoyed about something when Aberdeen are doing well. One final thing on the weekend before we hear from Cameron Hobbs and the insight into Spartans, because we do touch on team news from both and our perspectives on that. Defensively, aside from the goalkeeping situation, do you change the back four this weekend?
No. There you go. Definitive answer. Look at that. No waffle from me. But yeah, I think, like I say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I think the main thing you want from a back line, including your goalkeeper, is consistency. You're wanting your centre half pairing to be as consistent as humanly possible. It's the only way that you're going to build into knowing when to drop, when to press high, So yeah, I think he'll most likely go unchanged. As much as, it maybe would be nice to see Angus getting a run out, and perhaps maybe Milne getting another run out at centre half as well. But yeah, I would be inclined to say keep it unchanged, see what's looking like at half time. If you want to get minutes and legs at half time, if we're up by a comfortable margin, then by all means, swap out one of Ruby or Malloy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see the back four changing. The only position I do, if we are to make a change to the back four, would be Nicky Devlin for Jack Milne. Again, is something that we've spoken about and has been spoken about, is managing Nicky's workload, given what he was like at the back end of last season. But as you said, if it's not broke, don't fix it, especially defensively, because they'll only build confidence that way. So that's our thoughts ahead of the game this weekend. Earlier on this evening, I caught up with Cameron Hobbs, who works for Spartans and also hosts his own podcast. So let's hear his thoughts now, Phil. Cameron, welcome along to Red Tinted Glasses. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me. A unique week for me, this one. So, putting myself out there and excited to be part of this. So, yeah, I'm hyped. This week's going to be brilliant. I'm buzzing all week long. So, yeah, excited.
I'm excited very much so to have you on the podcast as well. But our listeners and viewers might already recognize your tones, especially if they're an NFL fan. Spoiler, I'm sure people already clocked that for those watching on YouTube as well. Where might folk recognize you from already?
So I'm the host of a podcast that's now called Stramash, which is the Scottish NFL podcast. We used to be NFL Scotland, changed the name so that we didn't get into any bother with the NFL because we're not officially affiliated with them. I have been doing Stramash since 2018. So, podcast from before the pandemic is something that we talk about. And it's been great. Like it's like what you guys are doing. It's a podcast to bring the community in Scotland together. We're not trying to be global or anything like that. We purely exist to talk about NFL from a Scottish point of view. What it means is we have a weekly episode and we do some live events. We've just had one in Glasgow there, Top Golf, that was a huge success, sold out, 140 people there last night. People absolutely enjoyed it, and I will take the opportunity to pitch. We've got a live event coming up in the week after the Spartans Aberdeen game in Edinburgh. So anyone looking to join us, check us out.
Good. No, and I do listen as well, and it is a very enjoyable listen as well. And I know there are folk that tune into this podcast that like NFL as well. So opportunity for you to plug that before we talk the real business why you're here, which of course is the League Cup quarter-final clash as the first ever meeting between Aberdeen and the Spartans takes place. And Cameron, you've actually had a lot of involvement with the club over a number of years as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so I joined the club, first of all, in 2006. Started going along because I wasn't getting up to Aberdeen, based in Edinburgh, was looking for a local team to go and support. Ended up going into Spartans, met the chairman the first time that I was there. And by week 2, I would been offered a position of writing for the program. So embraced it from there. After that, after a bit of time, took on the website, ended up being the match secretary for our junior team. I basically ran the team that was in the juniors, which was the Spartans reserve team in the old junior setup before we got this new pyramid system that we've now got. Yeah. So that involved everything. That involved attending league meetings. That involved signing the players, doing the paperwork. I once went into Tynecastle and signed a player on loan, which was quite fascinating to see behind the curtain. It wasn't as glamorous as you would think that world is. You just go in, you sign a bit of paper, have a bit of chat, and off you go. The player's yours. But, nice experience to be able to do. I did the tannoy for a while as well at the stadium, which I really enjoyed. I managed to make it onto Off the Ball on the back of that one. Tam Cowan had said something about the music being rubbish and they wanted to pick. So I reached out to them, having heard it, and said, the Spartans tannoy guy, I think it was a match against Forfar, said, if you donate £50 to charity, I'll let you pick the tunes, all the tunes for the weekend. So they said, we'll actually give you £100 for charity and we'll pick the playlist. Thanks very much. And by the way, do you fancy coming on Off the Ball? I was like, absolutely, I would. So did that, went on. I've been on it twice. Once with, and I forget his name now, that's terrible. The guy that Craig Levine fought with, his teammate. It'll come to me later on. Yeah. But he ended up playing for Man United, so I should really remember it. And then, sure. And no, it was older than that, so I'll need to remember. It was an old defender. So he was one of the guests. The second time I was on it with Frank McAvenny. was like, what am I doing on this? Like me and Frank McAvenny. I was like, Jesus, I am definitely the underperformer here.
So you've had a lot of varying roles with the club as well, and this weekend, as you said, sees the Spartans travel north to face Aberdeen, and you're actually going to be there on a working capacity and have the opportunity to be in the boardroom.
Hopefully, yes, this is the plan. So going up as a club official, looking after the media side of things for the team. So it's been, like I say, I've been involved with the club at a number of different levels over the year. For me, this is a real sweet spot as well. Like, you know, when I got involved with Spartans in 2006, the talk of the pyramid system was still, you know, hot topic. It didn't exist. And I was a big believer in it. I was a big believer in it before I even got involved with Spartans. I used to, when I was a teenager, go and see Peebles Rovers play. You know, my grandfather stayed down in Peebles, and when we'd go down there and look at the local paper, they'd be playing Kelso United. They'd be like, right, I got to get me some Peebles Rovers Kelso United action. So, you know, you'd rock up to that. And I used to always think it's a real shame these great teams don't have the opportunity to play into the league. The Highland League as well, for so long, so good. And these clubs quite often did really well then in cup competition when the select few got their party invite and got included. And I was always a believer this is something we need to put into Scottish football. So, you know, being involved in that, and that day I got involved with Spartans, I always thought, do you know what, wouldn't it be great one day if Spartans could play Aberdeen? I would love that. And here we are, what are we, 18 years later, it's finally happened. So, you know, very excited about it. I can't wait to go along. And a real honour to be there representing Spartans as well.
Patience is a virtue, they say. When we look at Spartans as a whole, as you said, they've come up through that pyramids system and held their own since doing so, coming up from the Lowland League as well. If we look at this season in particular, how's this season been? It's just one league defeat, and games seem to be quite close and tight affairs. So
absolutely, and I think that it's a big thing that Spartans have had, and we talk about this at Spartans. Dougie Samuel, the longest serving SPFL manager, 12 years he's been in the role. The management team before that were in position for a long time as well. Spartans believe in continuity. And I think that that's something that we carry with us. What that means is you've not got sweeping changes. So what we're able to do is carry some of the good form from last year into this year. There is also, though, a period at the start of the season where things are bedding in, teams are figuring each other out, and other teams have changed since the last time we played them. So early doors in the season, I think it's about getting as many points as you can on the board. I think that the game against Forfar, you know, being totally honest, we probably were on the back foot. I think Forfar probably played better. However, one of the things that Spartans are and have been for a long time is difficult to break down. A hard team to beat. They play well together. They work hard. And the players are fit. It's an important part of the game. And you look at Reece Armstrong, who's just signed for Airdrie and was obviously up at Pittodrie playing against us in the League Cup. You know, he is a player that will run and run and run and close players down and continually, you know, put the effort in until he's absolutely drained. And that's an ethos that you'll get right across the team. It's that sort of attribute that I think means that what you're not seeing is Spartans getting gubbed on a regular basis. And then there's games like the game against Forfar where we grind out a result. Now, there's actually a game before the Aberdeen Spartans game because we've got to travel to Elgin City. So thanks, SPFL, for that one. But off we go up to Elgin. We have to play them on Tuesday night. That's a tough game because Elgin are much improved this year as well. Yeah. And then we go from that into the Aberdeen game. So, you know, the Aberdeen fan and be like, great, we've got a whole week to prepare. The Spartans fan is be like, this is a disgrace, man. What are we supposed to do? You know, both hats. And I'll be wearing both hats all week long. Yeah, I know, because I remember seeing your tweet when the draw was made. You were debating what end you were going to end up being sitting in as well. Obviously, the only side from Edinburgh remaining in the cup draw as well. But a big thing about Spartans, you've just spoken about the ethos, is how much of a community club Spartans is as well. How excited is the community for this tie? And I'm expecting to see a large travelling support come up this weekend as well. Yeah, I would imagine there is a good amount of people coming up. I know that there is subsidised buses being put on. In previous years, we have put on a good number of buses to come to the games. This is massive. I think that, yes, Spartans does a huge amount in the community. And you know, Dougie Samuels, the manager's got a foot in both camps there. The work that the academy has done is absolutely tremendous. And I would say to any Central Belt dandies or any dandies in the area, if they ever at loose end and want to come along to a game, come to Spartans and see Ainsley Park and ask the people there about what that club means and what it does for the community. It's huge. You know, we do have our group of ultras in the corner. The club work really hard with them as well to make sure that they've got an opportunity to safely come and watch sport and do so in a way that they're not going totally off the rails. And I think that that's just what the club wants to do. It wants to welcome people in. And we'll make sure that the people in the area are able to come and see Spartans. And at the same time, giving something back, giving the local kids somewhere that they can go and play. Yeah. I know when the academy first opened, there's a lot of people talk about new facilities get put up, and what's the first thing that happens is the gate gets locked. So Spartans were very open and said, look, the gate will be open, and as long as you respect the facilities, you can use them. Now, it's not open through the night and stuff like that, but you can imagine it is an open door policy. Come along and play. If you go to Spartans, there is boots that have been handed in. So even if you turn up and you've not got the right boots, there's a pair of boots here for you. Don't worry about it. You know, we've got boots that you can put on. So it's about encouraging. And then that comes all the way through the youth academy. You've got players, you've got people putting their kid on the waiting list before they're even born at Spartans. Like, it's a huge youth setup. And then you've got players like Jamie Dishington and Blair Carswell, two in the team that I'm going to call out there. Jamie Dishington is brilliant to watch, excited to see what he can do. Blair Carswell, what a goalkeeper he's been. And, you know, what a huge amount of games he's already played. He's not yet 30, which, you know, for a goalkeeper, you would say that 29 to 33, maybe the sort of prime years as a goalkeeper. So he's just getting into that. And these players have been vital in the growth that Spartans have had on the field over the last couple of years, been a big part of winning the Lowland League, getting up into this League Two and continuing to be part of that. And again, we were one goal away from taking Dumbarton to extra time for potentially a place in League One. So phenomenal first season. You know, we'll hope for more of the same. And I think that, you know, the League Cup's amazing. The focus is definitely the league because the club wants to go.
I was going to say, is the eyes on promotion as much as this is a welcome distraction?
Yes, and I think that that's the goal. I think that it's not going to be the end of the world if it's not achieved, but I think what we're looking for is continuous growth. And a period of time where we are adding the pieces to the team that's going to take us up the levels that we want to go up and play to the level that we want to play at. Yeah. So, you know, I do think longer term championship level should be the aspiration. Potentially full-time football with a really good football academy underneath it is a goal that we should be striving for. The people involved at the club, the chairman is one of the greatest people. And he's one of those ones over the years, like life's got in the way for me. And I've been more involved with Spartans and then less involved with Spartans over the years. And every now and then I'll maybe be a bit less involved. And the chairman will just say to me, oh, do you fancy coming back in? And I'm like, I can't say no to you. I just can't say no to you. Yes, tell me what you need me to do. So, you know, he genuinely is a brilliant, brilliant man. And Spartans are very lucky to have him. Spartans are very lucky to have a lot of people involved. And that it's just a solid foundation upon which everything else is built.
Yeah. You've mentioned Blair Carswell as, of course, a long-standing Spartans player. You've also mentioned the fact how tough they are to break down. One thing you can accredit to that, 4 out of the last games have seen clean sheets, including, of course, that famous win over Ross County, which previous guest of the show, Andy Skinner, of course, the reporter from the Press and Journal who covers Ross County, was at Ainsley Park and said on to myself, you know, pre-record as well, there was no disgrace from Ross County. It wasn't like Ross County had an off day. Spartans were fully deserving. How much do you think, I should say, the continuous amounts of clean sheets and the fact they are tough to break down will give them confidence coming up to Pittodrie at the weekend?
Well, I think that is something that comes from what we talked about earlier, that hardworking ethos that is instilled into the Spartans team. So, you know, it's Blair Carswell, I think 304 games and 109 clean sheets in that time. Is an impressive record, you know, and being with Spartans all that time. I talked about Jamie Dishington as well, 310 games for Spartans he's had. So these are guys that have played in this team for a long time. They know what's expected of them. They know what they can achieve. And they are a football playing team. At this level, there's perhaps a connotation that, teams are just hoofball, get the, blooter it away as much as you can, play into the channels, run it down and take a shot at goal. Spartans are not like that. And what I really hope from the weekend, above all else, we'll talk about the scoreline later, I'm sure. Above all else, what I really hope for from the weekend is that Spartans get the opportunity to show the type of football that they like to play. Because I think, actually, there are similarities in some of the stuff that Jimmy Thielen's getting Aberdeen to do. Now, similarities, I'm not going crazy here. Spartans play like Aberdeen do. No. But what I mean by that is there is nice connecting play. There's clever balls into feet, into possession, to move quickly, to create space and create opportunities. Blair Henderson has been able to thrive on that because we can create the space and opportunities. He gets a sight on goal. There's a damn good chance he's going to hit the back of the net, which is great. It's exactly what you want from a striker. He is our Rory McAllister. And I think that is a fantastic part of what we are. And against Ross County, he got that opportunity and he took it. But looking back to that game, it wasn't a smash and grab job. It was a better team won on the day. Which is great. That's what I had in the notes about the fact it wasn't smash and grab. I want to speak about Blair Henderson in a second, but I just want to pick up on that point you mentioned about hoping to see Spartans get the opportunity to, play their own football. And I guess from, the previous rounds, we've seen Queen's Park have opportunities against Aberdeen. Airdrie themselves very much put their own stamp on the game up here as well. Do you think... Well, how do you think Spartans are going to approach this game, I guess? It's not going to be a case of sitting in and respecting Aberdeen too much, or do you think that might be the case for the first 10, 15 minutes, not try and go gung-ho and find themselves losing an early goal? I think that it'll be... Early doors, it might be a little bit of that, and I think that it'll be about settling into the game, start to understand exactly what Aberdeen are trying to do. I think what we've seen as well from Jimmy Thielen, the challenge that Spartans are going to face, is Aberdeen have kind of been mixing up their approach throughout the game, which means that's hard for teams to adapt. And again, the further down the levels you go, the harder it is then to change that adaptation. So where the challenge for Spartans is going to be is if Aberdeen go with a particular approach for 10, 15 minutes and then change that up, Spartans are going to have to then readjust the way that they're playing to meet that new challenge. How can they deal with that? It's very different to some of the teams that we're facing that maybe only have one or two styles that they can effectively play themselves. I think already what Thielen's got us doing, and look at me, see, both camps. Us and us. We and we.
You're going to be a happy man regardless this weekend.
Absolutely. It's a win-win. A win-win. I think the challenge is going to be how to adapt to that change. I think Spartans will not necessarily look to... listen, I could be completely wrong. The game plan might be hit them fast and hit them hard. And that'll be great if that's the case. It'll put us Aberdeen on the back foot. But I think that, it'll be a case of respect. Definitely respect your opponent. I'm fascinated to see what Thielen's going to do from a lineup. I think that's interesting as well. And probably more so, what's Thelin going to do versus what our Spartans going to do is probably a more complex question on the Aberdeen side.
Yeah, I think on that then, I guess we obviously have seen Ross Duhan playing in goals in previous rounds as well. It'll be interesting to see if he continues in between the sticks. Obviously, Dimitar Mitov saved us a lot of the time in the league and has been a very big performer. We saw Ante Palaversa come in at the weekend for a very impressive start. No reason in my mind why you would drop him, allow him to get more minutes under the belt, especially if Graham Shinney is nursing an injury. Certainly when we're recording this segment, there's been no news on that. You've also got a choice up front as well. Kevin Nisbet, Esther Sokler. Do you improve one of their confidences in front of goal with obviously the greatest of respect to Spartans? Leighton Clarkson coming back, still needing minutes under the belt. But Pape Habib Gueye in goal scoring form, do you drop him? So it's strange from an Aberdeen point of view that you've got this depth and options. I don't personally feel we'll make too many changes in terms of the defence. The only change I do see potentially is in that goalkeeping area. But the midfield and forward line, there is an opportunity to make changes. However, from an Aberdeen point of view, this is going to be seen as an ideal opportunity to get to Hampden. With the greatest respect to Spartans as well, it's one that fans will probably have already booked travel or eyed up travel for the start of November. But I'm sure Jimmy Thelin sees this as a banana skin and will treat it with the utmost respect, and we won't see wholesale changes because obviously the League Cup provides such a great opportunity for Aberdeen to win some silverware.
I will tell you, I have confidently cleared my weekend for the semi-final because I'm going either way, right? So it doesn't matter to me. And I think you're bang on. Like, this is the sort of game, and I think Aberdeen have fallen foul of this in the past. I think if you look at the League Cup group stage, though, Thelin's not used that as an opportunity to put out, a second string team.
No,
this is still a League Cup quarter-final. So, the other one that does Duke feature? Is this the sort of game that you put Duke in and go, right, show us how fit you are? And that's the sort of thing that, might be really interesting. So, there's definitely things. Listen, there's things I know that might work better against Spartans than other things. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to give Thelin the cheat codes here. I might foot both camp, but I'm a neutral in the same sense.
I like how you think he might listen in for hints and tips on the Spartans lowdown. Well, there goes the question about what areas of the pitch can Aberdeen look to exploit. But if we get your insight then from a Spartans point of view, just in case he is listening, Blair Henderson, as you mentioned, is the obvious goal threat from Spartans. But what other players or areas do you think Spartans can look to cause Aberdeen problems, if any?
So I think that, again, it's a hard-working team across the board. I think in the middle of the park, it is about recycle the ball as quick as possible, pass amongst the players, create space. I think that Jamie Dishington, Cammy Russell's the other one. Cammy Russell is a very exciting, talented player. Has a great long throw on him that is a weapon. Has a fantastic free kick on him. He has scored some absolute beauts. And if you want to go and see one, there's a game against Cove in the League Cup group stages where played on a horrible misty evening. And there's a curling shot that the ball just comes out of the mist and hits the top corner. It's beautiful. And he's very capable of that. He is a dangerous, dangerous player. We didn't have him fully against Hearts, and I felt that was a real shame because he picked up an injury just, I think, 2 weeks before. And I'm going to be honest, I think it's maybe a different result if we had Cammy Russell that day. The Hearts fans will be like, shut up, idiot. But, the other thing
that Hearts game from last season, how much confidence do you think they take from that for the game against Aberdeen, or is it the fact that this game's not being played at Ainsley Park have a different bearing?
So that's an interesting one as well. I would say, if we look at our results at home, beating Ross County, fantastic. But we beat Livingston away. So, managed to do that in Livingston. Astro pitch, so used to playing on that surface. Yeah. Let's be honest, though, as far as pitches go, Pittodrie is looking magnificent at the moment. So it's going to suit the style of play. It's not like it's some bobbly field, We're playing at Easter Road, different story. But listen, we can take confidence from it. I think the Hearts game was the biggest game in Spartans history at that point. I'm biased, but this is the biggest game in our history. This is a League Cup quarterfinal, and we're away to Aberdeen. Like, this is it's massive. So, don't get me wrong. Spartans Hearts, because of the Edinburgh thing, I get the significance of that. There's a lot of people that Spartans are Hearts fans. There's a lot less Aberdeen fans at Spartans. So this is where I get to have a bit of time. So,
Yeah. This is your moment in the spotlight.
Absolutely.
As I said, we've seen some great crowds as well at Pittodrie so far this season. A huge crowd, of course, at the game against Motherwell at the weekend. Spartans, great to see subsidized buses for the fans traveling north, and I'm pretty sure as well I've seen on social media the ultras section from Spartans have also got a little display planned for the away end as well, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of colour, not just from the home end but the away end as well. You've got a foot in both camps, but in general, how much belief do you think is in the camp of causing an upset this weekend, and care to put a score on the game at all?
I will give my own answer to this. Can we cause an upset this weekend? Yeah, we could. And Spartans absolutely could. Will they? My head says probably not. I've kind of said what I hope from this is that Spartans have the opportunity to showcase some of the football that they play. I've been on our chairman to get in touch with Aberdeen and get some of the young players that are going out on developmental loans down to Spartans, because we play a really nice style of football that I think works really well with what Aberdeen are trying to do. So listen, I'll be doing my bit for that at the weekend. I'll be trying
chirping
to
in Alan Burrow's ear then.
As much as I possibly can. And I think it would be great. There's so many Central Belt dandies that can't necessarily make up their game. And there's so many games this season are going to be on a Sunday, or goodness only knows. So there's an opportunity there to get some Aberdeen fans along to Spartans and come and see these games, as something I've done myself and thoroughly enjoyed. So, I think there's an opportunity there to show what we can do, for the fans to have a great day out. I would love to see us score at least a goal. I think that my head is saying it's a 3-0, 3-1 to Aberdeen. What I've been saying to other people as well is my view is a 2-2 draw and going to extra time is really going to challenge me on where am I most nervous? Am I most nervous for Aberdeen, or am I most nervous for Spartans? And I think that might tell me something about myself. So from a purely selfish point of view, let's take it to extra time.
Well, I'm really hoping it doesn't go that far. And I also think, having not realised that you've got the trip to Elgin in midweek as well, extra time could be a huge killer for Spartans as well, potentially. Obviously, again, thinking if Jimmy does change his squad, the strength and depth that we have coming off could also be a huge difference. I've said on my predictor a 3-0 win. I don't expect Aberdeen to blow Spartans out of the water. I don't think these games ever go the way you look at it. Queen's Park, a prime example this season. I think many a fan expected us to put 3 or 4 past them, and it took to the 90th minute to do so. So I think it'll be a close game, but I hope that Aberdeen will just have too much firepower and options in the wide areas to cause Spartans problems. But I'm sure Spartans will be hoping that any chance that comes their way, Blair Henderson will be on the end to gobble it up.
Absolutely. And just to touch on Blair, just a phenomenal scoring record that he's got. Like I said he was like our Rory McAllister. And one of the things that I think we've been really lucky with in my time at Spartans is we've always, bar a couple of seasons, had a prolific goal scorer that's been at the club. I'm just looking at the exact numbers here to remind myself. But yeah, 94 goals in 147 games Blair Henderson's got. And, that is just a level of consistency that shows he knows how to find the back of the net. Previously, before him, there was a striker that we had, Keith McLeod. Keith McLeod was a phenomenal striker. I've likened the two of them. I still speak to Keith now, and I've said to him, I'd see similarities. They are different players, but both massively prolific. Keith McLeod scored 284 goals in something like 400 games. Just a huge amount of goals. It's equal to our British record from the 30s because he scored in 14 consecutive games. We've been really lucky with Spartans that we've always had this consistent goal scorer. But again, it comes back to what I talked about at the very start here. Spartans about consistency. We've never had mass clearouts. We've never had 15 new players over a summer.
Yeah.
It's never been that club. There are key people that are at Spartans because they want to be at Spartans. And that means that they stay at Spartans. And that's brilliant. And that's something that you just cannot buy that. It's somebody that's there because they want to be there, not because they could get money, more money elsewhere. Blair Henderson could probably get a lot more money elsewhere. Cammy Russell the same, right? Jamie Tishington could probably get more money, but they love playing where they play.
Yeah.
They love the club that they're part of. And that is an attribute that you don't see on Championship Manager because you can't put a number against it, right?
Yeah.
It's a passion and a desire to care about the club that you are playing for. And I think that is a massive part of where Spartans are today.
Well, hopefully there isn't a goal scorer at the weekend, or certainly a goal scorer that's going to cause.
You want a 0-0 draw? Are you telling me you want a 0-0 draw? We want at least one goal scorer. Come on.
I'm meaning from a Spartans point of view. I'm wanting as a comfortable a Saturday evening as possible at Pataudry. No cup nerves here, please. Cameron, an absolute pleasure getting you on Red Tinted Glasses to speak to you and get the insight on Spartans. Really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you for having me.
And I guess as well, just a final opportunity, where can those of viewers that maybe have an NFL persuasion catch the Stramash podcast?
Absolutely. At Scotland NFL on Twitter, Stramash.podcast on Instagram and TikTok. See how old I am? I don't even know the names of the things. We are on Spotify. You can search Stramash with an exclamation mark. I think you can search Cameron Hobbs and I think it comes up. So yeah, search for Stramash, listen in. Always looking to grow the Scottish NFL community. I'll do a very small pitch for my other newer podcast, which is a whiskey podcast called The Sipping Point. So go listen to that one as well. We do whiskey experience with a different guest each time. We've got some amazing episodes, one including Daniel Sloss, who's a massive comedian. Brilliant episode with him. So you can check that out on Spotify too.
Well, go and check those episodes out on Spotify. Remember to follow the podcast, Red Tinted Glasses, as well, wherever you listen on audio. And if you have been watching here on YouTube, remember to leave a like, comment below your thoughts ahead of the weekend as well. And if you're new to the channel, why not subscribe as well? Until next time,